Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything that's going on in NFTs, crypto, and how to make some money online. Hopefully a lot, hopefully not lose it all at the same time. Loaded up for discussion today. We've got Cantor Fitzgerald launching Bitcoin financing business with $2 billion in initial financing. That's pretty interesting against the backdrop of Senator Loomis reintroducing the Bitcoin Act. We'll explain what is going on there in a little bit. We've got changes proposed to the ETH ETF to allow for staking, which is pretty big, I think. And finally, Taproot Wizards on the ordinal culture NFT side of things have revealed the details of their mint, attempting to raise $35 million. Lots of conversation about that in the last 24 hours. We'll dive into that as well later in the show. I've got Legendary and Bread with me in the co-host seats. We are ready to get into it as usual, but just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is incredibly risky and we don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Bread, it's Wednesday. It's the 12th of March now. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Thank you for the reminder of which day it is, because it's hard for me to keep track these days. I just got home. Yeah, I flew in. I actually missed my first flight because I'm not aware of how I knew this. I just fucked up. Coming back, I was in New York, right? So there's traffic in New York. You know, you don't know how to gauge distance. You don't know how to gauge like time of day stuff. They dropped me off at the wrong terminal, and I could not make it. I couldn't get on the bus to do it. So I just bought another ticket, and yeah, I got home late, about 4 hours ago at this point. And now we're back to it. So
that's unfortunate. I don't know. I think I'm in the minority when I say this. I can almost bet on the type of person that Legendary is as well. There is almost no chance that any of you would be able to travel with me because I'm the person that would be there 3 hours early for international travel. If that's what they say, they tell you, be there 3 hours early. So I will go, I'll relax. I will have nothing to worry about on the travel, on the way there, in the airport. Sometimes when I'm inside the airport, sometimes I still miss it because I'm like too relaxed, but it's because I'm already there and I'm just chilling and there's just like nothing to worry about. And I should actually at some point worry that I actually now need to go to the gate. You know, that's my issue.
I've crossed the threshold of like being comfortable. I used to, in my previous life as a consultant, I would fly weekly. So like I have several hundred flights under my belt. Like I flew a fuck ton, right? And like even like twice a week. And then those flights would usually be layovers. So I would, easily on 4 or 5 flights a week, right? Yeah. So like I'm numb to it, and I'm just like, yeah, fuck it, I'll just go. And then I've actually missed enough at this point that I'm just like, if I miss it, I'm just like, all right, fuck it, I'll just grab another one. Like I'm so used to being rebooked and removed, and like just through my own issues or someone else's, that like my error triaging is actually pretty stress free.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess in both scenarios, we both managed to get to a stress-free point. It's just the journey to that stress-free point is completely different.
Yeah.
Legendary, where do you sit? Where do you sit on these travel arrangements?
You actually are wrong about that. I sit in a very weird spot, I would say. I flew a lot as well. Also, worked in consulting. I still fly a lot, and especially like the thing that I flew the most often last year, for example, was obviously flying in and out of London. And I'm very, very early at the airport. I know exactly on the minute because I fast track everything through Vienna. I know exactly it takes me between 7 minutes 30 and 9 minutes typically to go from basically leaving the car to entering the lounge. But I'm still there fucking early, and I still spend 1 hour plus in the lounge. And I'm also still the person who loves to board the plane as the first person. No matter how often I fly, I just like to be the first one to board. So if I fly with people who like to board last, this is the only thing that stresses me. So I'm like, you know what? You're going to board on your own time, but I'm the first one to enter that thingy. And then I'm also like very, very relaxed, but I'm in the weird spot of still enjoying the whole thing too much. So I'm there early, but I obviously know to the minute how much time I need. And then I also like leave the lounge pretty early again because I want to be first to board. So I'm in a very weird middle spot.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna need to get on the plane first, you're just gonna have to front run everyone, aren't you? Rahim in the comments, 3 hours early to the airport, gang. It's just fun. It's just fun. It's just nice. You get to relax.
What do
kick
you?
back.
This is the ultimate question: is flight lands, bing goes off. Are you standing up immediately? Are you waiting?
No,
No, that's horrible. I hate people who do that.
I'm chilling.
That's
Yeah.
it's I did a lot of flights in Asia when I did the backpacking over there. It is the culture on there is I cannot express like how quickly everyone gets up to like hurry up and wait in the stand up to get off the board thing at the end. It blew my mind how many people stand up just to like not do anything, and then they don't let you get out like out into the aisle. Like people from the very back of the plane will push their bully way to their front. It was mind blowing to me.
That aspect is illegal. Like you are where you are. You
Especially
can't
you
like
guys
somehow
being
get
English.
through
Yeah.
people.
You guys
to
love
go
a good
further
queue
ahead.
over there.
Funky, your hand is raised. It's obviously a very important topic today. We've got the Bitcoin bill. We've got changes to the ETH staking ETF. But Funky, you have to come in on this, I think.
I'm with you, B. I'm like, this is gonna sound so bougie, but like, I'm an Amex Platinum Maxi, so like, I love a good lounge, and especially because I'm always working, right? So I just like to be there, open up the MacBook, work for a bit, enjoy some free food, right? This is the ultimate hack bread. Like, I just load up on protein before I go on the plane. Like, I'll eat whatever they got in sight, and just knowing that I'm only going to get some kind of snack, unless I'm flying first class and get a meal. But like, most of the time I'm on like Comfort Plus on Delta, they're just going to give me some crap snack that I don't want. So I love the lounge for that reason. But yeah, I like being there early. And Legendary, that's like the tension between me and my wife. She wants to be the very last one on the plane, and I don't mind getting on as soon as I can, just so I can get situated, and often just take out my MacBook and start working. So yeah, I really like. I'm with the early gang.
Boarding separately is the solution to that problem.
Don't have to do things together. We can split up. There's no issue. You're going to be on the plane. You're going to be on the same seat or next to each other for the rest of the flight. See how that one goes down, Funky. Right. Look, we could do the whole show on this probably, can we? But we can't. We have to get into it as usual, guys. Starting with the price action, as always in the majors. Let's get into it. Starting with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's up 1% at 82.5k. ETH is flat at 1.9. I think Legendary, you had some interesting stuff going on ETH price action. We'll hear from you in a bit on that, I think. XRP is up a couple of percent to $2.20. BNB is at 560. Solana's up 1% at 125. Getting into the meme coin side of things, which, to be honest, we might ditch this section soon because it's so erratic, so random, and I don't know if there's any correlation sometimes now. Doge is up 4% to 16 cents. Pepe's up 9%. So everything's kind of bouncing here today. Bonk's up 4, Whiff's up. Well, Whiff's basically flat. Who's up 5?
Still haven't sold that, by the way. I know I've been complaining about that. I might do it on the show just so, like, just to do it.
Give us the private key already.
Yeah.
This is why you need to get to the airport early. You'll have time to log in, sell the meme coins that you no longer want, but you can't do that. So this is the consequence.
You said it as a joke. I'm just going to turn over the private key to the people in the crowd. Maybe you guys to like actually get this stuff done. Someone trusted so that whenever I mention something on the actual show, they can just click the button for me immediately. Maybe get a commission out of it.
I think they can have all the money in it. It obviously doesn't mean anything to you. So turn it over and hand it over. Fartcoin is up 7%. SPX is up 5%. Murad's coin. We have AI16Z down 7%. Mog's up 12%. Ket's the one on AVAX is up 14. Popcat is flat. Okay, kind of random here. Just no real correlation. Not enjoying reading the meme coin prices, to be honest, at the moment. AIXBT's flat. No real correlation that I can see. ARC AI is down 13. Kind of all over the place, to be honest. Getting into the main headlines themselves, we have Senator Loomis reintroducing the Bitcoin Act yesterday. I like that news. I actually watched the majority of Michael Saylor's keynote, which he delivered at that place. It's basically the same speech he gives every single time, but it's good to see that conversation taking place. Cantor Fitzgerald launched Bitcoin financing business with $2 billion in initial financing. That's pretty crucial. Remember, the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, is the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. So very, very strong crypto connections there. And we'll learn more about that when Legendary breaks that down in just a little bit. We've got changes proposed for the ETH ETF to allow for staking. Some people think that's very, very significant. Brad will break that down in just a moment. And then finally, Taproot Wizards reveal ordinal mint details, which are going to seek to raise $35 million. Lots of people have been commenting, questioning, and debating. I have some strong thoughts on that, which I'll share later as well. Some notable sales on the art side. Obviously, with ETH down, I think a lot of these more expensive art pieces have become cheaper. So there's another Fidenza sold for 30 ETH, 2x copies sold for 23 ETH and 14.5 ETH respectively. Any other NFT action going on, Legendary, that we should know about?
It seems that NFTs have had a bit of a green day, kind of following the meme coin price action, honestly, with Pudgy Penguins now being back above 9 ETH. We reported them yesterday significantly under 9 ETH. Bored Apes closing in on the 13 ETH, floor price again at 12.8 ETH. More significant price action is on the ordinal side of things with the Quantum Cats, obviously, but I will keep that for later once we get to the headline per se.
Okay. Yep, we'll get to that in just a little bit. Good to see a bit more green on the charts. Into the Web3 Roundup to get you up to speed with everything else. This was really interesting. I saw a couple of bits of news on this type of thing yesterday. Huge market maker Wintermute creates Wildcat, which is a market seeking $75 million in public credit. So these markets are public access. You can provided that your address is not OFAC sanctioned, you can start lending to Wintermute today with a minimum deposit of just $1,000. That is interesting. I wanted to read into that or dive into that a bit more in my own time because I only saw that this morning. Metaplanet acquired another 162 Bitcoin. Michael Saylor delivered the keynote speech, as I mentioned, at the Bitcoin Policy Institute with Senator Loomis. $1.5 trillion asset manager Franklin Templeton filed for an XRP ETF. Coinbase announced they'll launch crypto trading in India. That's pretty significant, I think, because India has historically, or at least up to this point, been very, very resistant to allowing kind of foreign entities in there to operate. So I think that's very significant. They've also been pretty resistant to crypto in general. So that is significant. ETH L2 Starknet announced it will become the first L2 to settle to Bitcoin and ETH. Mesh completed an $82 billion Series B round. That can't be right. $82 million Series B round led by Paradigm to expand its global stablecoin-based payment settlement network. Again, stablecoin businesses finding it, I think, not so difficult to raise significant sums. Bubble Map's airdrop takes place, trading at $75 million FDV. And finally, another interesting one, Bitwise announced Bitcoin Standard Corporation's ETF, which provides exposure to companies with more than 1,000 Bitcoin on its balance sheet. The rules for that ETF is that the corporations must hold at least 1,000 Bitcoin. Holdings are weighted by the amount of Bitcoin owned, and the largest holding is capped at 20% for diversification. A lot of interesting news. Again, the trend is, I think, a lot of corporate and institutional news increasingly getting into the snapshot every single day. I think that's easy to say. But I'll leave it there for now. Before we get into the main stuff today, Legendary, what is catching your attention from around the space? Then I'll want to hear from Brad too.
There's two things I want to cover. I want to cover the Mesh race, the 82 mil, because I think that's actually super, super interesting. And then I want to talk about what you had mentioned previously, the ETH stuff. We also had a couple questions on that on the YouTube comments, what's been going on there.
That's very good.
On Mesh, yes, it's a $82 million raise. Very interesting is it has been settled in PayPal USD, in PYUSD. And basically, round was being led by Paradigm, Consensus, Quantum Light, YOLO Investments are in on that. The thing that they are building is a smart funding payment settlement system. Basically means you pay in BTC, ETH, whatever, Solana, they settle, the merchant receives stable coins on their end. And why is it interesting? Because of the people actually that they're working with, one of them being MetaMask, but to me, the even more interesting one is Revolut. For those who don't know Revolut, one of the largest neo-banks, digital banks coming out of the UK, who's been historically very, very crypto-friendly. And if they build this thing out with those B2B ties, basically, I can see how they would have raised such a large amount and have received that interest. So that is on the Mesh side of things. On the Hyperliquid side of things, we've seen something pretty interesting happening. So we had this whale who had a 280 mil long on ETH. And ultimately, that whale got liquidated, but because he wanted to get, or they wanted to get liquidated, because they started to just remove collateral to push it to the LTV cap, to the loan to value cap, and ultimately get liquidated on that position. So the HLP, the Hyperliquid liquidity pool, had to take that quote unquote toxic ETH position over. And Zhu has been speculating, the now, what is it, OX exchange, formerly 3 Arrows Capital, that what actually has also been going on as a part of that is most likely that this trader has a short on a platform like Binance Open on ETH as well. So basically, Hyperliquid is now forced to get rid of their ETH position, sending ETH down a bit lower because it's such a significant size, and he's making money on the short. And even if he wouldn't, he should be up overall on his total trade, but even if he weren't, it was just a hedge, it would put Hyperliquid in a very, very uncomfortable spot. And if you actually look at the HLP, at the vault is now down to a 0% past month return, as it has lost 4 mil over the last 24 hours. Losses still appear to be increasing. And the question then was, because it actually became a pretty interesting conversation with Kane from Infinex weighing in, with Zhu, still providing a lot of context from his experience at 3 Arrows Capital, what the solution to that is. And his point was, there isn't a solution to that side. You can quote smaller, you can possibly freeze funds to pay back HLP. You could try to slash people with that behavior aggressively. Another approach would be to stop that, is to KYC people, but that's something that obviously neither Hyperliquid nor Infinex would want to do in that case. But that's exactly the thing that happens if you have, quote unquote, a relatively small perps exchange like Hyperliquid. I know it's big, and we speak about 400 mil being in the HLP, but it's not a lot of money if someone can go in with a 280 M long against a total of a 400 mil liquidity pool, and then let himself get liquidated, have a short open on another platform, and basically play that arbitrage game, or play that price moving game between two platforms.
Very, very interesting. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. One of the things you mentioned is that you moved your money out of the vault not so long ago. We had shared quite some time ago that we had both parked a reasonable amount in there. I think the rate that you were getting at one point was 20% plus. The reason why I actually moved it out, this is the way I'm less of a technical reader of these situations and more of a holistic reader, and looking at the general market and how people are moving. As things started to crash, I feel like we go into this period of time where things just start to break. Things that I think I'm wise enough to know that there are things which I don't understand, which will break. And I felt like if there are vaults that are offering you loads of money and it sounds too good to be true, in good times, it's completely fine. All those things are fine. In fact, even in some of the bad times, things like Aave, they still keep running 99.99% times out of 10, it's going to be completely fine. But if you want to just take a little bit of risk off, particularly on newer protocols, particularly on protocols that are arguably, not just arguably, factually far less decentralized than the other ones, something like the vault was something I thought, right, there's no need for me to be in this for this 20%. So I just took it out, thinking we're going into this period of things breaking when prices move aggressively, like they have ended up doing the last, 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks. I think it's you can protect yourself by taking yourself out of some of these situations that you have to be wise enough to know. I don't fully understand how all these things operate. No one could have foreseen this trader, for example, playing this type of game. And my understanding is, no one's lost any money as such in the vault, although the vault has generally lost money. No one is necessarily out of profit if you've been in there for a while, but it's just worth thinking about. So really, really helpful to bring that up. Any reflections there, Ledge?
Yeah, my initial thinking was not that happening. My initial thinking was just if people have access to early information when it comes to news coming from the US government, they could play a very, very similar game. And again, for that position, there was a 14 mil collateral. 14 mil is, yes, shit ton of money, but also not a lot of money given the amount of whales we have in this space. So it's like, if this can be manipulated that easily, then with a relatively low amount of money, I just don't want to be on the other side of the trade providing liquidity. And you obviously cannot do that if you build a short position somewhere else and don't even need to have political news. And I think the tricky situation with that even was that people were speculating that, this person might have insider knowledge. Why are they increasing the long and like longing alongside them and trading, which basically increased the like quote unquote relative position side or relative risk exposure of that, because maybe people got lured into following into that trade, which should have made the total thing a bit more profitable.
Interesting. Really, really helpful explanation of all of that. We've also got the main headlines to come up, but I want to just go around the table to hear what else is catching people's attention, starting with bread. And then we've got Dith with us as well. So I want to come to you in just a moment.
Yeah, no comments on that one specifically. I'm not someone that's been like outside of my Kaido selling recently and looking for something to do with those stables. I haven't really parked it anywhere, and I was looking at simple stuff like Morpho and like anything above like I think I literally put this in a chat the other day where someone gave me was giving me like 20% APY on something to do with those. I was like, scam. Like I know that I know this space long enough. I'm not willing to risk even for those numbers, because I just know historically that's what's happened to positions that are anything above like 20%. Like my alarm bells just start going on. The other side of that is that I actually am following our intro and talking about my whiff bag. You'll be happy to know that I sold it. I just did it. Thank you, everyone. Just now, recently. Okay. I'm maturing as a market participant. I would also like to say that the hat most definitely has come off. Holy shit. Looking through that wallet, the numbers are not what I remember.
Do you know, looking at it, like how many multiples less is it than what it was?
I have a snapshot. Even though I didn't take the snapshot on my phone, I have the mental snapshot. I did one of these back whenever I looked at it last time. So in my mind, I was mentally pegged to these numbers in my head of like, I got like X amount in there. Yeah, I got Y amount in there. X and Y have been fucked up pretty hard. It's just that's the space.
Okay, so for you, Brad, if you're not going to take the screenshot, which is the rule for everyone to sell something, you need to now know, right, the mental screenshot that I take. You've got the mental screenshot which you took. So
I have a few occasions of the actual screenshots. I did that with pups earlier last year, I guess it was, or Jesus, that probably been a year or two ago at this point. That's not pretty. Luckily, I've been able to keep up with the actual like migrations and shit. So I still actually have the tokens. They didn't wipe them from me whenever they like burned the old ones. So that's good.
That's a win.
But yeah, they're fractions of them for their former selves, for better or worse.
Nice. So we are capitulating some of our memes. That is probably helpful, or I don't know, but
I'm happy. So we talked about it the day of whenever the Kaido stuff was going on. I need to look at the actual price of them, but I know I checked the last few days, and the price was actually it's still roughly at where I sold. So like that makes me feel good that the process actually the one thing that I actually did, I followed the process, sell X% on the actual date, and then like fucking forget it, man, because like these prices are never going to go one way forever. They went up for a while. They made you have a little remorse there, but we're back in the realm of like, hey, I made the right call. Good job, previous me.
Yeah, the latest version of you did a good job. Yep. So we're seeing improvement. Yep. That's good. Okay, let's check in with Dith. We've got Dith with us, head of business development at Pirate Nation and Proof of Play. Welcome back with us, man. What's going on your side? How have you been? What's catching your attention in the market at the moment? We've obviously got this other Bitcoin news coming. We've got the ETH staking news. We've got Taproot Wizards. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But what is catching your attention separate to that?
Hey boys, sorry I'm a bit late today. Actually, over the course of this morning, I saw, legendary what you're describing with the Hyperliquid position play out in like a couple of my groups. Firstly, everyone who still holds ETH bags has this like hopium, right? So when this like massive long position was taken, everyone was like, hey, insider knows something. Today's going to be a good day. Great. then we realized like what's actually going on, and you know, so the hopium bubble bursts. There definitely was, and I'm not sure if that's related to the chart. I think there was like an unlock today as well. There's definitely that like moment of panic where like I got pinged like, hey, you know, what's your positions? And you know, fortunately, and I mentioned this last time, like I'm not trying to trade this volatility. Like it's absolutely wild. I like happily stay sidelined on this one. But I did worry for a few of my bros who are extremely risk tolerant and like they enjoy these games, which I think I find a bit wild, but game is game, right? Yeah, and so you know, we'll see, right? We'll see what happens with ETH and the staking ETF stuff. I will say every day that goes by, I wish I was just sitting in Bitcoin instead. And then on on the yield stuff, I mean, even to be fair, even Vitalik, you know, he's like been criticized in the past for like not supporting DeFi enough, right? But he, you know, on yield specifically, like he asked the hard question, like, where the hell is this coming from? And yeah, I agree with what you guys have said, right? If it looks too good to be true, often is. Like, be careful.
Hyperliquid also made an official statement on that, just clarifying once more that it wasn't a protocol exploit or hack. Someone jokingly said people thought it's an exploit because someone made money longing ETH. So what happened, again, user had unrealized P&L withdrawal, lowered the margin, got liquidated, and made 1.8 mil in profit, and then basically caused the HLP to lose that 4 mil. And as a first solution to that, what they will do, they will update the max leverage for BTC and ETH from 40x to 25x to basically then, you know, force you to have a larger maintenance margin requirement. But that's only applicable then for larger positions. So that is the first reaction to that.
Yeah.
And interesting thing is, sorry, just one more sentence on that. If you look at the HLP now, they are 60% in ETH because of having to take on that position. So if you buy a deposit in the vault, you have essentially an ETH wrapper because more than half of your position is now in ETH.
Wow.
To be fair to these guys, though, like they're just on it, aren't they? Like they're just like, you know, every time something happens, or remember there's like the security FUD and so on. Like, I just like the way they handle their shop. And
they did nothing wrong on their end, and you know, as you said, like either you understand how the HLP works and you deposit, and that's also why you get 20% yield, because you take on an additional risk if someone tries to, you know, find a way to make money off that, and you sit on the other trade, on the other side of that trade. If it were risk-free, nobody would give you 20% for free. So Hyperliquid, fair game. Their stuff worked exactly how it is supposed to work.
I think it's worth calling out both the update tweet and the top comment because I think it's hilarious. So the Hyperliquid actually adjusted their leverage longs to address this. They said max leverage will be updated to BTC and ETH for BTC and ETH to 40 and 25x respectively. And they're like just saying that there's no scam, there's no hack. It's just like, yeah, someone took advantage of this. And the very first comment is people thought there was an exploit because someone made money longing ETH. I love
There's
it.
another good one, which is no one is safe from Ethereum this cycle. I'm crying.
Awesome.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So what was Ethereum before max lev? Like 50x, I think, right?
I think.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I ironically, so that was like one of the few things that I did with Hyperliquid pre-airdrop, and the airdrop ended up being so good, I made all the money back that I lost on that bet and more. And I think it was 50x leverage, or it was 25. Yeah.
Interesting. But as you say, there could be absolutely on it, really fast changes here. And even in general, the other thing which I think is setting them apart from their competitors at centralized exchanges is they just bring the coins to market faster. Like, people are always wondering, when's this going to get listed on Coinbase? When's it going to get listed on Binance? But the perps just go live on Hyperliquid as soon as and when they are relevant. Like, you want these things to be trading when they're relevant, and they're just the best at doing that, objectively.
Yeah,
so.
and also we don't have this like sort of weird crime state where it may be perps live, just perps for like a long period of time, inevitably driving the price down before we see spot. So like, honestly, I hope Hyperliquid wins, and that's not bag bias. It's just like, you know, we've seen so much crime on centralized exchanges over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's great that we have Hyperliquid in the game now.
Yeah, people pushing real product and doing so really, really well. So we will continue to monitor. Interesting updates, excellent insight from the boys today, I think, on that. That was definitely needed some color brought to that situation. Look, we've got a lot of big headlines to get into today. We're going to get to all of them. We've got Taproot Wizards, we've got the ETH staking, we've got the Bitcoin bill getting reintroduced. So we'll do that in just a second. But just before we do, let's get into our 0G segment for today. We're going to be talking about their latest announcement, where they announced that they have just joined forces with Plume, the first full stack L1 RWA chain, in order to support RWA AI agents, a suite of AI-driven solutions designed to improve real-world asset finance. So what does that mean, and what is the goal? So the goal is to introduce decentralized AI agents specializing in tokenizing RWAs, real-world assets, automating the research and reporting, and managing on-chain financial operations, all of which basically means they're going to leverage AI to help automate the real-world asset business workflow at every stage. 0G is really well placed to deliver the AI-powered RWA future because it has market-leading inference and data storage infrastructure, which the RWA AI agents can leverage. On Plume's side, it has a huge ecosystem of more than 180 RWA projects, including institutional-grade asset issuers and RWA-Fi primitives, which they can plug in to work with 0G on this. And their focus will be 4 things. First, AI-driven RWA tokenization. So that's the automating the conversion of real-world assets into on-chain tokens, automated research and reporting, that is AI-powered agents conducting on-chain and off-chain research, delivering insights and reports. Third, DeFi for RWA management, which is autonomous financial agents optimizing vault management, task execution, and liquidity provision. And then finally, institutional and retail accessibility, bridging AI and finance to provide scalable, transparent, and efficient financial infrastructure. Commenting on the partnership, the co-founder of Plume had this to say. He said, RWAs are the next frontier of DeFi, and AI will be the key to unlocking their full potential. By integrating 0G's AI capabilities with Plume's RWA ecosystem, we're building the tools necessary for a more efficient, automated, and accessible financial future. So we look forward to seeing how 0G and Plume continue to work together to bring RWAs to life on 0G. And we will be bringing you more videos on how 0G is moving towards its vision to become the largest L1 for AI too. So shout out to 0G for sponsoring us today, and we'll be continuing to provide these little breakdowns of how they are moving forward. So we'll continue to bring that to you. With that being said, let's get into the first big headline for today, Legendary. A little bit of a mix between some Bitcoin financing business and the Bitcoin bill. How do you want to take this? What do we need to know straight away?
Yeah, very massive news, actually. So we have, on the one hand, Cantor Fitzgerald, Wall Street financial services firm, with the chairman being Howard Lutnick, who's also the Secretary of Commerce. And they have announced a $2 billion financing initiative. Basically, the idea here is to provide tools, leverage tools to institutional investors who are holding BTC. And they will kick this off with $2 billion in initial financing and planning to extend it significantly over time. In order to bring this vision to life, on the custodian side, they did partner up with Anchorage Digital and Copper to basically manage both the collateral and custody for the assets. And the idea there is to provide a strong tool set, leverage, etc., for institutional holders or people who are on an institutional level interested in increasing their BTC exposure. Just to paint a bit more color on Cantor Fitzgerald, because I feel like we spoke about Howard Lutnick for a while, more from the administration side of things, but not so much about the company. 12,000 people work there globally. Company has been founded in 1945, obviously one of the biggest financial services company today. And it has one very interesting aspect to it, which we also had mentioned previously, but it's good to bring that up again. They do have strong ties with Tether, which means they hold a 5% stake in that company, which is currently worth 600 mil. On the revenue side of things, approximately 700 mil for Cantor Fitzgerald. Assets under management are 5 bill for the US side of things. And there's also an overseas division in Ireland that holds another 8.2 billion in euro. So pretty significantly sized for that business. And also, if you put that in relation to the initial financing for the Bitcoin side of things, that 2 bill is a significant bet to them. It's not, that's just a little try that we go there. It is moving in with significant size and conviction. That is on the Cantor Fitzgerald side of things. And then what we also have bullish for Bitcoin is Senator Loomis reintroducing the Bitcoin bill. That is the bill that we shared. It was, let me check the date, back in July 31st, 2024. And that was the idea for the US government to purchase BTC over the next 5 years, with the idea to purchase a total of 1 million BTC and hold that for a minimum of 20 years. And exactly that bill is now being reintroduced, which Senator Loomis has posted on X.
Like it. Super helpful summary of the key bits of information. The only thing I would add on the Cantor Fitzgerald side, then not only have a little stake in Tether, they also serve as Tether's primary custodian for US Treasuries, and they manage a significant portion of its reserves. That's just an extra bit of information. If you saw that whole list of people who have been visiting the White House, the CEO of Tether has been in the States as well recently and has been a part of that kind of delegation. He was also speaking at the, I think it's called the Bitcoin Institute, where this thing was taking place yesterday with Senator Loomis, Michael Saylor, and Paolo was there as well, the CEO of Tether. So very much integrated. I feel like this is going to take some of the heat off Tether. You know how, for whatever reason, USDC is the favored coin in the States. They obviously have a very close relationship with Coinbase for distribution. But USDT obviously is far, far larger. And so I feel like they're kind of getting more legitimized as they've been being brought closer and closer to the administration. Brett, I think you wanted to come in here.
No, nothing was jumping out at me there.
Oh, I thought you were doing the thing with the mic where you're about to go for it. Okay, so that was the only thing that I wanted to add there. Dith, what are your thoughts here? Do you have any additional thoughts on kind of where this is going with the Bitcoin bill, the significance of that, and also maybe on the business side with this kind of Bitcoin financing news?
Really, just the bottom line on that is, yeah, as I said, like I wish I was holding more Bitcoin. It's like such a comfier hold right now, right? Like the vision for it is much clearer, and everyone kind of agrees, like, if any of these things are going to be a long-term store of value, it's Bitcoin. Kind of really, one or a set of question marks over everything else. So this just adds to like my existing feeling of like, man, great time to be a BTC maxi. Just be patient, and like either the rest of this year is going to be really good, or it's going to be early next year, or whatever. But it's like a matter of time, right?
So I was listening to a podcast yesterday, 2 days ago, and one of the people is a very big ETH bull. Like he's been dunked on the last like year and a half because he keeps it, like he was excited and like everyone keeps telling, and he actually just capitulated, and he was reflecting on the moment, and he's like, man, like if I'm the one that sold today, like who's the next seller? Like I am the bull that has held through all this shit, and like he was just trying to like maybe it was the last like Boltard thought or something. It's just like, like maybe this is the bottom, and like, the dip keeps dipping situation. But it's a legitimate question that you have to ask yourself in both directions, right? Like who is the next seller and who is the next buyer in either trend, right? Like when your taxi cab driver is telling you to buy something, like who's going to buy after him? Fucking no one, right? Like he is the last buyer. And same thing with like now, like people who have been diehards for multiple years are now starting to capitulate a little bit. So it's like, who is the next seller after the people that have been holding and hoping for the whole of this cycle and are now starting to rotate out? Like, yeah, who's next? I
think that's such a good question to ask. I think you also need to ask the corresponding question, which is who's the next buyer? And I mean, hopefully we'll circle into this as you go into the staking thing, because we're going to, arguably that's potentially one of the best catalysts, one of the strongest arguments for ETH as it moves into this kind of stakeable asset. But when you think about the question, who's the next buyer? if you compare this with like the previous cycle before ETH was about to take off, ETH was like super well positioned then versus all these other smart contract chains. Now there's just a bunch more competition. And I think that speaks to Dith's kind of question mark against it, because Bitcoin is Bitcoin, it's separate to everything else. We already knew that anyway, but the government has even specifically designed it that way with the strategic reserve and then the stockpile, which is everything else, which is basically competing with each other. So yes, you got to think who's this next seller, which I agree with. People must be getting exhausted at this point. Like, is there a marginal buyer even as we bottom out and there's far more competition than before? So that's one of the things that I've been thinking about in my head. And
I'll
maybe
give you my very left curve take on where that, who the next buyer may be, or why anyone may still be foolish enough to hold this thing. The first left curve take is like Trump's buying it. We don't know what his long-term plan is, or his team rather, right? It's not, he doesn't know jack about
actually their biggest holding, right?
It's their biggest holding.
In World Liberty Fi, to be clear, their
yes,
kind of private entity.
And they could just flat out be wrong, but what if they're not? What if there is stuff we don't know yet? Which leads into point number 2, which is Larry, right? And everything is ultimately tokenized. Can we see that happening on another chain other than ETH? I guess, but it would be weird, right? Like still today, the only blockchain that I believe may be around in 100 years is Ethereum. Everything else, I'm not super convinced. And like, there's other great L1 charts, but they're crime charts, right? Kobe's tweeted specifically about some of those L1 charts, which are just like, hey, at some point the music stops and your buy one, get one free deal doesn't work. So at this point, does crime happen on Ethereum? Yes, but it's just a lot more mature, and it's a lot, like a lot of the early shenanigans are like, they're just not there anymore. And I think like lastly, and most importantly for me as a builder, is like the best builders I know are still all on Ethereum. And it doesn't come close actually when you look at like the maturity and quality of apps elsewhere. Sure, there's like some outliers and there's some wild success stories, Pump Fun on Solana and the rest, but for the most part, like the best and most credible builders, even people starting new stuff, is still on Ethereum. Now, the elephant in the room, what about the token, the value accrual model, the fees, look at the PE ratio and the rest, like all that stuff still stands. But the left curve take is like Trump's buying it. If everything gets tokenized, it's probably going to be on Ethereum. And lastly, the best builders are here. So, and there's a lot of other examples through history where like, if you have the best builders, then barring, weird force majeure and terrible luck, you have the best builders, you win. So that's the left curve hopium take. As I say, every day that goes past, I wish I was in BTC rather than Ethereum, but I think that's why there are still some people that kind of won't sell no matter what. They still think ETH gets to 5 or 10K or whatever, right?
Why do you think that ETH is going to be still around in 100 years? It's compared to the other blockchains. Like, what is it specifically that gives you that confidence or the like positive outlook?
Yeah, it was the way that I've heard actually a couple CTO level people, one person in particular who I trust a lot, sat down with me and broke this down over the course of like an hour. And unfortunately, I can't repeat that being non-technical, but essentially like understanding how the network is structured versus others, and like the kind of resiliency in it, just led me to believe more than what we see elsewhere. And I also think Vitalik, for all his weird ass quirks, is like, if anyone was going to build a legacy chain, it's that guy. I still like believe, like, again, as much as I'd love the dude to stop wearing COVID masks and being like quadravaxxed and get into the fucking gym, I still like believe in the dude's motivation. I still think there's purity in that motivation, which is just simply not the case for like the vast majority of other crypto teams. Like the vast majority of like people are like, to be real bros, we're here to max extract, or whatever the fucking line was from the guy, right? The Kelsier guy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think that's far too well articulated though, Div, to be a left curve take. That was
damn.
That was-
I
that was like- you had like
defeated
multiple-
myself on the objective. You always
You
go
had
left
like
curve,
multiple
right?
points there, all well structured, all well thought out. That's you know,
Trump's buying. Trump's buying. That's the left curve take.
that was the left toe. Yeah, when you went beyond that, it was too far.
Fuck.
But look, we'll circle back to ETH in a sec. And there's something that Saylor said about Bitcoin in the speech yesterday, which I'll come back to when we talk to when Brad talks about staking. We've only got 9 minutes left. I want to give Funky a chance to come in on this because he's the resident Bitcoin expert. What are your thoughts here, Funky? We started talking about Bitcoin, started veering off towards ETH. What are you thinking here? What are your thoughts?
Just 2 quick points as the political correspondent in this arena. One, you know, again, glad to see Loomis introduce the bill. It doesn't mean squat until we have a House companion, and then you're still going to have that all haggled out through. You know, we already see this with the stablecoin thing. I think Senator Haggerty just reintroduced updated language to the Genius bill, which is the Senate companion to the stable bill that's in the House. Of course, you know, my personal take on Bitcoin, very glad to be holding mostly Bitcoin at this point, of course. And so and the other thing too is the reconciliation process for just the overall budget, because they had a continuation, because of course they bump up against the debt ceiling. They always just try to figure out how do we move forward. And the Republicans are basically getting blasted for doing the same thing that Democrats were getting blasted for last time, which is having all this pork spending buried in bills and everything else. And so as much as they preach this sort of, you know, financial conservatism and we're going to reduce the national debt, so on and so forth, people are pointing out in this reconciliation bill that there's tons of spending going toward things that, you know, just their pet projects. So that's going to become an issue, because where are we going to get the money to buy Bitcoin? That's really what I'm trying to ask. And then just a quick comment about the ETH thing. I'll never forget in 2021, some rando who I don't even remember his name or whatever, but he basically had been in ETH since the ICO, and he almost perfectly ticked the top where he sold it close to around 4,000. He just like wrote this long piece about like, I'm out of ETH and I don't see a future. I don't think it's going to go to 10K, because if you remember the previous cycle, people were like, oh, 10K, you know, and it does make me wonder. But I think Diff brought up really great points, and this is why I too believe that ETH has a really long-term horizon, because it could potentially be sort of the base economic settlement layer for all of crypto on a smart contract when it comes to that. It's just for, you know, first mover advantage, network effects, and all that other stuff. So really interesting conversation today.
Okay, appreciate the additional thoughts there, Funk. You're kind of leading us into the next topic. Let's go to Brad straight away then and find out what exactly we need to know on ETH staking as part of an ETF. Is this going to be one of the major catalysts for ETH moving forward?
Yeah, I'll double dip and I'll put a bow on top of the last conversation, and then I'll lead into this. And I think what Dith and Funky are ultimately getting at, like there's a lot of properties you can describe Ethereum, and like there's been a lot of soul searching for like North Star and whatever. And the most distilled version, and for me, is like it is the unstoppable computer like inside of our paradigm, and that's just because of how the infrastructure is actually set up, right? Super decentralized, never goes down. Like it's just the thing that right now is comprised of enough machines that like no matter what you do, whether you're a state actor or basically anyone, you don't have the ability to stop it. Now that doesn't mean it's valuable in like a pure token sense, but it is something that I think has the most structural advantages to persist for a long duration of time. Okay, so but to get into the ETF stuff, so this was the headline specifically: CBOE BZX exchange files to add staking to Fidelity's Ethereum ETF as fund loses value amid crypto market decline. That actually covers everything that was in the in the actual article itself, and it's basically just saying that that they filed a proposal rule change on Tuesday that would allow Fidelity Investments spot ETF to have a staking ETF, and FETH is its actual ticker. That is the third largest ETF on the market today, and they just have, there you go, you have the little graphic there that shows even though it's the third largest, it actually has been bleeding a little bit as of late. I think the top there is in January 25, where it ticked, and just been a little bit of a downtrend since then. But like this has kind of been a lot of the early hope for what Ethereum would provide, right? Like Ethereum has yield, traditional finance loves yield, and that would be an edge that would be allowed within the ETF space, right? You have a lot of these funds coming to market, then you have them being able to do additional things like in this in particular, they're able to stake a portion or all of their purchased ETH with a preferred custodian, and then you could presumably get some yield there. Either pass that back on to people who have the actual who actually have the ETF shares themselves, or hold it themselves, and then just like not take any actual fees on the ETF itself. Then you have a 0 rate ETF out there for people to buy into. So like this hopefully, or this was the original bull case of Ethereum ETF relative to the Bitcoin ETF. If this plays out, maybe it is something that is appealing, and maybe even gets the point across a little bit more of what it actually is than relative to Bitcoin, right? Instead of like trying to go down this path of describing, oh, it's a decentralized app store that allows you to do all that. It's like, no, this thing gives you yield. It gives you yield because there's
just stake the
productivity on top
thing
of it
and get your returns.
It's a productive asset, right? And because it's a productive asset, like it shows up in the form of yield. And seeing that percentage next to Ethereum relative to Bitcoin, which, you know, you can do things to get yield on, but it's not natively from the chain itself, right? The chain doesn't generate any fees. Maybe that is the purest form of the story for traditional finance.
Okay, that's an excellent summary. Core question that I have for you, and we have to go quick here because then I think Legendary does need to do the summary on what's going on with the ordinal, the Wizards mint. Do you think is the staking yield enough? And what have you thought, Brad? I don't. Maybe we need to. This is like a longer research question we need to look at. But a lot of people are talking about Bitcoin now. When people are making these Bitcoin buys, whether it's Metaplanet or whether it's Strategy, they always mention the yield. They're always talking about Bitcoin with yield as well.
In yield in the form of future earnings?
I think so. I think that's how they're framing it. So in the end, it's not yield in the way that we are traditionally conceiving it, but they obviously know that this is a great way to sell a product to people with a particular amount of yield. And maybe even, so just, have you thought about that much? Is there a particular view you have on that kind of competition that both have for yield?
Yeah, I mean, all the verbiage I've heard around Bitcoin is more in like a cost to future earnings or previous earnings. Like, you didn't buy last year, and because it's up 20%, you technically lost 20% on that. It's like, I've always heard it framed in that way, as opposed to like, this thing is giving you strict yield. I don't know what you know, financial wizardry they're pulling off to take an asset that literally doesn't do anything and then making that thing generate you interest on top of that. Outside of doing some funny stuff on the carry. So yeah, I like there is no competition, right? Our Bitcoin, the actual chain, generates like $30 in fees a day. It's like fucking nothing, right? That's a little exaggerating, a little hyperbole there, but like relative to the actual cost of the thing, like the market cap, that's what it's generating. Now Ethereum's also starting to trend down, so like it's not as impressive as it once was. But the difference between a productive and a non-productive asset is Ethereum has things that exist on top of it that people are willing to pay for, that can then be passed on to the network, right? Or they can be absorbed in some fashion. It goes back to stakers and whatnot. That's just not the case for Bitcoin today.
For sure. Good data points there that I think people should be aware of. We'll digest that a bit more. That's a kind of key question. I want to think about the way people are framing it moving forward. But we've just got a couple minutes left today. I think it's really important, Legendary, to just hit us with the minute pitch to why should we part with 0.2 BTC and buy a Taproot Wizard? What do we need to know? $35 million potential raise here. What's the key information? What are we thinking?
Absolutely. Most anticipated Ordinals project is coming to market in just under 2 weeks. March 25th, Taproot Wizards will have their mint day. There's 3 ways to get one of the 2.1K Taproot Wizards, one of which is to participate in the public Dutch auction. The other 2 ways are to either have been one of the top supporters of the project, which then would allow you to mint one of those wizards for 0.2 BTC, or to be a holder of the previous collection, the Quantum Cats, with the specific detail added that you need to have both a live and a dead cat. And if you have those 2 cats, you get to mint for 0.1 BTC. As you perfectly said, if the Taproot Wizards mint out, they will likely raise around 424 BTC. Whale did the math on that. That's around 34 million US dollars, just to put that in comparison or in perspective with some of the top projects from the last cycle. Newton's raised 91M, Moonbirds raised 60M, Azuki Elementals 38, and World of Women Galaxy 34M. That is for those companion NFTs, so to speak. And then again, if you add the 13 mil raise for the Quantum Cats together, if they sell out, that would be almost a $47 million raise at current Bitcoin prices.
Love it. Excellent quick summary there. I'm just going to give one quick take on it because we don't have much further time today. A lot of people saying on the timeline, like, why do they need this amount of money? There's no need in business. Like, you build a brand, you sell a product, you decide your price. No one really needs to make any amount of money more than they need for their family to survive. It's just up to you to decide how you pitch yourself, the community that you build, and what you're going to go for. So maybe other people might disagree with that take, but I just think you price the product at the price that you think that you can sell it at, because you're probably incentivized to maximize your own profit. And if you don't sell out, then, you know, you maybe priced it too high and you have to pivot. And if you price it too low, then you don't earn as much as you could have. So there are all kinds of brands who build themselves up to sell expensive stuff to more affluent people. And that's clearly what the wizard community is supposed to be. And if you can't afford it, then that's just not you're not one of the consumers that I guess they are targeting to be a part of that specific community. So I think it's just business, and people should kind of forget the idea that something is too expensive or whatever. Like, it's just the price that they want to pay. It happens all over the world in every other kind of segment of business too. So good luck to them. We'll see how it goes. Haven't got more time to discuss it on the show today because that is time. So we'll be back again tomorrow as usual. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks to Legendary, Bread, and Dith, all co-hosting with me as usual. Thanks to Funky as well for all of his contributions up on stage. Hope you have a wonderful day. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a great day. Bye-bye.